Hello, how are you? It's kind of a dark and stormy night tonight, and we're doing another in the series of the I Ching hexagrams. As always, I'm using the Magician's I Ching, which is my own book. And this video can be seen as a continuation of, or a commentary, a companion to this book. If you're interested in the I Ching, and you haven't picked it up yet, I'd strongly recommend you do. You can find it on Amazon, or you can find it from Aeon Books, which is the publisher. So today, we're looking at hexagram number 7, which is called the Army. So, hexagram 7, the Army, features the moon below and the world above. And one of the things that is immediately apparent is that it has only one solid line. The others are all broken lines, right? So why is this hexagram called the Army? Well, the first thing to note, the moon and the world, the image associated with this hexagram says water in pits deep beneath the world. So the world is obvious, and the moon trigram is also understood as primordial water. And so since the moon is underneath the world here, the imagery is of water in pits deep beneath the world. And what does this have to do with an army? Well, you have to consider in ancient times, if you wanted to gather together an army, if you wanted to have a force of men, you had to have the right supplies. And it was relatively easy to move food around, but a lot harder to move enough water around. So any place where an army would gather had to have a secure supply of water. So really this starts with talking about the right environmental conditions to put together a group, right? And that environmental condition is that you have to have the right material in the right place and in the right secure way. So this hexagram is about gathering together people for a purpose. And that's really what the army should be understood as. The Chinese name for this is shi, which is a word meaning a unit of 2,500 troops. So it's literally like a brigade or something like that, right? A troop of forces that have come together. And you can understand this symbolism. Well, let's go first to the description here. It says, you must persevere on the right path. There's good luck and freedom from mistakes if the chosen commander is wise. Anytime you have a hexagram that is all of one type with just one exception, like this one, where they're all yin lines or broken lines and just a single solid line, then that one line that's different becomes very central to the understanding of the hexagram. And here, the central line is not in what you would assume to be the right position, you could say, because for one thing, the solid lines, the yang lines, are stronger when they're in odd-numbered places, 1, 3, or 5. And the ruling, or rather the ruler line of a hexagram is the 5th line. That's the line associated with the king. And that's because it's in the middle of the upper trigram, right? The upper trigram represents higher things, higher forces, higher society, higher concepts, spiritually higher developments, right? But here you have only one solid line, and it's in the middle of the lower trigram. So it's a reflection of the upper trigram. And this solid line is talking about how the necessity in this situation, because it's clearly the army suggests a time of challenge or a time of conflict possibly, right? Remember that the hexagram immediately before this, hexagram number 6, is called struggling, right? So when there's struggle, you have to get together your army, right? And this means it's not the time for the loftier things to be considered, but rather the more immediate, necessary, lower things. And hence you have the guy in charge, the commander, is that second line, right? It's a reflection of the king, right? So if the king is the ruler of the kingdom, then his delegate among a group of people will be his chosen commander. And the essence of the description here is saying that in a situation where there's challenge that requires perseverance to get through, if you persevere on the right path, then a lot depends on whether you have a wise person, the chosen commander is wise, right, in charge of the situation. Confucius, in his commentary, says that persistence is necessary to govern a large host. The strong, the solid second line of the hexagram, has to progress through difficult tasks and thus conquer, winning the people's allegiance. So if we look at the lines here, the lowest line, says armies need discipline, right? At the start of things, the very basic of things is that you have to have discipline from the very start. If not, corruption and disaster follow. The second says the general commands justly and he has good fortune. And he's honored 3 times by the king and given important offices. So this is a reference to how the second line is a reflection of what's going on in the place above, right? So the third line talks about an army of corpses, disaster on the battlefield, defeat. And that's because the third line, which should have a solid line, instead has a broken line, right? So it's, if you get the third line as your oracle line in an I Ching casting, it's suggesting that the wrong person is trying to manage things, that it doesn't work out. The fourth line says the army retreats and regroups in an orderly fashion, no mistake. So that there are moments where retreat is a vital part of military conflict, and sometimes you have to know how to back up from a situation and reorganize, and that's as much of an important leadership quality as anything else. The fifth line says there are beasts on the field, but they're easy for the wise to spot. Choose the wise general and he leads the armies to victory. Choose an inferior person and he will bring back corpses in defeat. So the fifth line is that broken line, the ruler line, and it draws back towards that question of the second line of who is in charge. And thus the fifth line, which, you know, if it was strong, it would be saying everything's going to go great. Here, because the fifth line is in a weak position, it suggests that if you're the person deciding who to trust, you need to be very careful about who you pick, because if you pick the wrong person, it's going to lead you in the wrong direction. And finally, the sixth line says, the prince takes command. All is well. He gives title to victorious generals, but an inferior person must not be given offices or disaster will follow. So again, it talks about picking the right person to reward, picking the right person to give honors to. If the prince is in command, he has to have good people under him, and he needs to know who to raise up and who not to raise up. So this is the essence of the seventh hexagram, is that it's talking all about having to overcome a challenge and needing to bring people together to overcome that challenge. When you get this hexagram in a casting, it means you have to know how to organize people and know how to choose the right people to direct what needs to be done. And this isn't a time to make choices based on some kind of abstract, lofty thing. That what's dominating here is the lower trigram, and it says that what you need to have is people who will know how to do the right things in the right moment. That's everything for today. If you're a YIFA student, there'll be another video, of course, in the private YIFA group where we're going to go way more into detail about this. If you're not a member of the YIFA Society and you'd be interested in this kind of advanced learning, then please get in touch about joining the YIFA Society. And if you found this video useful, whether or not you want to join the YIFA Society, please feel free to subscribe, especially to the YIFA Society playlist on this YouTube channel, and to share this anywhere you want, of course. Thank you very much.